Hi guys, hail and mirror me to everybody, it's Michelle Marie Tunney. And I wanted to do a video showing you how the Mac Mini has worked for me for the last few months and give my answer to it. First, a little bit back of story here. We bought the Mac Mini around late July, early August. And so we've been had it here for about 2 months' time. And I must say that it's been a very solid performer. From the minute you turn it on, which I'll show you right now, as I turn on the button over here, watch the screen. This thing boots like a rocket. Compared to the 2009 Space Heater, that is. Boom, 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 there it is. That's that monitor too. It boots so fast. That is not even funny. And it is, of course, I've got the one that has 16 gigabytes of RAM, 500 gigabyte SSD on it, and connected with a USB-C display port adapter for that monitor and the HDMI port for this monitor. And the computer, well, it's right here. That's right. That's the box. And this one's all cameras, streaming. It's got two USB-C Ethernet ports here with Thunderbolt support, Ethernet port here, HDMI port right here, two USB-A ports, a headphone jack on the bottom. But there is a couple things that I could say could be a downer for my application. So let's talk about that. First of all, I have a PS2 keyboard and I have a mouse that can be connected by either USB or PS2. That's the adapter here for this trackball that plugs in here, and my PS2 keyboard plugs in over there into a USB adapter that plugs into this hub over here. I'm not going to get into all the wiring, but just say it's just one of my downfalls because my setup is way more fancy than this computer was designed for. So let's talk about what was it designed for, because it might not surprise you. The Mac Mini was designed for people who wanted a computer that was inexpensive, could do everyday things like web browsing, and maybe do a little bit of StreamYards, or maybe do simple YouTube videos. And yet we're using it for much more complicated tasks than that. And even though we have so much more gear plugged into the back of it, it still works like a champ. So that means, like I said, it boots fast, it's efficient, it sips electricity, only 30 watts TDP. The processor hardly ever gets hot. The fan, I can't hear it. Not that I can hear much anyway, I'm partially deaf, but oh well. I'll take that as a good sign. And the airflow is pretty slight. It doesn't really blow hard in the back. And the nice thing too with it is very small. It's 7.5 inches square with rounded corners. The fact is, it's also very light. It's very portable. You can take it with you. Even though it does have a mains cord that plugs into the mains, it does at least doesn't use much electricity. So it means your utility bill is not going to be that bad compared to that with the 2009 Mac Pro that we replaced in everyday usage. 2009 Mac Pro, mine was fitted up with 32 gigabytes of RAM, 3.33 gigahertz quad-core Xenon processor, 6 terabytes of storage, of hard drive storage, and I added 7 USB 3.0 ports to it, plus the built-in 5 USB 2.1 ports, 2.0 ports, plus the 4 FireWire 400 ports, plus the 2 Ethernet ports, and a computer easily consumes 650 watts of power. Now, with the Verizon prices of utilities, that's a big deal. Electricity costs money, and it costs a lot. So that reason alone is why I went and got the Mac Mini, because my local utility company kept raising the rates to the point where it was getting so expensive to run it that I just couldn't keep running it on an everyday basis. So thanks a lot, Eversource/Everscrew. This basically made one of my computers be retired from everyday use. However, also, we've got this Apple is going to the Apple Silicon anyway, and this is way faster than that machine ever is. That machine takes like 3 minutes to start. From the minute you press the dong to the minute you get your first screen, it's like 3-4 minutes long to start it up. Applications take longer to boot. It is not fast. Okay? It's just the way it is. It takes about 6 minutes total to get back to the main screen. With the same software on this one had, which is my Stream Deck program, my taskbar, and everything below. Really major deal. Speed-wise, like I said, this thing runs circles around it. This thing is just major speed. It doesn't get hot. Okay? But like I said, there is a downfall with this computer. Yes, with Rosetta 2, you can run many older Intel Mac applications, but not kernel drivers. This is specified in Rosetta 2, cannot run kernel drivers. So that means that my Xbox 360 controller driver is useless, which means I can't drive my truck here on this computer. It's fast enough with the unified memory. It can do the truck fine if I don't mind driving my joystick, or driving my keyboard. I don't want to go back to that. I did that originally before I got an Xbox controller. The other thing is only the 4 USB ports on the USB 3.1s and the 2 USB-C Thunderbolt ports. You're going to be using hubs. Unless, as I said, you've got a very basic setup. Maybe you wanting to plug in a keyboard, a mouse, and maybe a webcam. In that case, you're going to probably need at least one hub, because the camera's going to plug in somewhere. And I'll tell you a secret. Cameras do not like being plugged in to downstream hubs. So if you're got a hub and a hub and a hub, your camera better be on the first one that's just a hub before the downstream hubs, or you're not going to get no video. Period. Okay? That's the first thing. Second thing is Bluetooth on my Mac Mini is crap. This is not... this is a known problem with the Mac and with Mac Minis, is that Bluetooth is crap. It doesn't work. I don't know why Apple never fixed it, but I did try an external Bluetooth dongle plugged into the back of the computer, and it did no better. In fact, it sucked. Even this is bad. Maybe if I used a USB extension cord and put the dongle far away from the computer, maybe it would work. But most everything in my computer anyway is plugged in by wire cable, so no big deal. But it does kind of limit you a little bit. 16 gigabytes of unified RAM is the most you can get on the M1 and the M2 Mac Mini. I do know that there is more RAM now available on the M2. I think it's like 32 gigabytes versus 16. But for me, running OBS and running Google Meets and Google Chrome, 16 gigabytes works fine. Okay, no problem there. I got it cheaper because it's secondhand. I bought it from a graduate student, and he treated it well, so I didn't have any problems. Plus, he also restored the factory. So when I plugged it in, I was all set. No major problem setting it up. And it runs through Rosetta. It runs Steam games fine. Even American Truck Simulator works fine on it. World of Warcraft, Blizzard, both the Intel and the other version for the ARM chip runs fine too. The only thing I have to tell you about OBS Intel, if you're going to be using OBS 2.7 series, you're not going to get access to high-speed codec of the built-in microcontroller of the H.264 encoder. Sorry, just be aware of that, okay? So, might as well run the ARM version, and then you can use the built-in H.264 encoder, H.263 encoder, and make your machine offload the processing to a coprocessor that just does video and rendering, which makes things even better for me, because it just works, okay? Ventura is pretty good. I haven't really had a major problem with Ventura. Coming from Catalina on the other Mac through DOS Dudes, because by default the M2009 Mac Pro could only go up to High Sierra, but there brings in another nasty reality coming in here. Since Catalina, it does not support any 32-bit apps in Intel Rosetta, so forget it. If you got it, if you think it's going to get an M2 Mac with Rosetta is going to let you run your old legacy 32-bit apps, nope. Guess again. Which means that things including Wine still doesn't work on this computer. And in fact, I don't even know if 30 to 64-bit Wine applications run. I compiled Wine, I set it up, and everything for 32-bit apps, it's just a giant dog biscuit. Okay, it doesn't do anything. Just, you can click on it all day long and search your games, whatever, they won't fly. Period. If they're 64-bit, they might work, but then you have to do a DirectX 12, and I know that on the Sonoma, which is coming out, that the DirectX 12 emulation is going to be available in Sonoma, but this isn't it, okay? Now, if I have to tell you what I think about this machine overall, do I think it was a good investment? The answer is yes. As long as you're aware of two things right off the bat. Number one, you only got 4 USB ports, 2 USB-A 3.1s, and 2 USB-C/Thunderbolt ports. And that supports Thunderbolt version 3. Okay? So don't expect you're going to get a million things plugged into your computer without using hubs or dongles, because you are going to need them. For example, this second display is going through a USB-C to DisplayPort adapter, where it's one is plugged into the HDMI port, for example, which means that overall, there's some little itty-bitty things you got to buy. There are better, more streamlined ways of doing this. I also have plugged in an external USB 3.0, actually USB-C hard drive. And you're probably wondering why. Well, the reason is this. SSDs are destructive write, which means not just destructive write, i.e. it wipes out your data underneath where you're going to put it to. It also destroys the bit hard drive a little bit at a time every time you write to it. So if you're going to be doing a lot of video processing, a lot of video work, it'd be much better to use an external SSD or external hard drive to save your computer from having to worry about the soldered in SSD going bad on you too soon, because once the SSD goes bad, the T2 support system in this machine is not going to work anymore either, which means your computer is a brick. Okay, so love your SSD because it's the only one you got. So make sure to love it and treat it good. Now, everything I've done on it as far as encoding has been fine. I only do 1080p at the tops and 25 frames per second. So, again, it's been doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's rendering fine things. The the headset port can directly plug in your favorite computer headsets in the back. No problem. OBS will work with that port directly. However, I wanted to use my USB mixer board right there, and that got a wee bit more complicated. just take my word for it. It got a wee bit more complicated, but it's not impossible. But OBS had to be configured in a slightly different way to do that with this loop back. But that was because it was an idea carryover from my older Mac, from my old 2009 Mac, which I just wanted to drop everything in and use it straight like it was before. Which in this case, it works fine. Wi-Fi works fine. It's Wi-Fi 6, and it does great. So, do you need to go for an M2 Mac Mini? No. If you're even doing streaming on YouTube, you don't need an M2 Mac Mini. You could get away with an older M1 Mac Mini. But I would tell you right now, make sure to get one with 512 gigabytes of SSD, because you're going to need it. Second of all, you're definitely going to want to have 16 gigabytes of RAM, because you need the more room, the better, because it's unified, which means it's shared between your display, your memory is shared between your video displays and your program and the operating system. In fact, in some ways, it's a carryover back to the old days of computers like the Commodore 64, where the memory of the computer, all 64 kilobytes of it, is used between the video and the programs and the operating system you're running. So, therefore, based on my experience in the past with Commodore 64s, Technicolor computers, and even the Digital Equipment Corporation Rainbow 100, I decided to go for the max I could get, which is 16 gigabytes. And I bought mine secondhand with 16 gigabytes RAM, 512 gigabyte SSD. I paid, with all shipping and everything, total of $705 US. That's not bad. And the computer was not badly abused. It was treated pretty well, and I had no problems with it. But except for one, the Bluetooth port on this computer is crap. I'm not going to lie. If you're going to use Bluetooth on this computer, go elsewhere. If you're willing to get around that, if you're not really too worried about Bluetooth, it's a nice machine. It's fast. It's small. It sips electricity like fine champagne. And it doesn't basically make you overheatedly hot. And trust me, this computer is as cool as a cucumber. In fact, I believe I have, no, I don't, but if I did, you probably would see that the processor on this thing hardly turns the fan on at all, even when I'm pushing it to its knees. And honestly, I have not been able to really push it to its knees. But don't forget, the computer does use the SSD, which is an NVMe drive, as swap. Now it's an SSD, so therefore, you best not to use it too much for swapping, or one day you're going to end up using up its life on the drive, and then you're going to cry. Okay, so can you install a operating system on an external drive? Yes, you can. Right there you'll see the two drives. And yes, you can have an operating system boot off an external device. Unfortunately, my mechanical SSD only gives me about, a lot slower than my internal one. But for what I use it for, I don't really see a major problem anyway. Software, as I said, is snappy, performance is great, and it's just a good machine. So, for 2 months I've had it, I had no major problems. And I've been very glad with my purchase, because it makes my work in my studio so much more enjoyable than having a big giant space heater sitting between my legs, throwing lots of BTUs of heat at me in the middle of a heat wave in the summertime. Trust me, this computer is much cooler and easier to handle, and it also takes a lot less space. However, we still have the other Mac, of course. That's in the bedroom, which tends to get a little bit chilly in the wintertime. So the secondary advantage of making a heat maker comes in handy is I won't have to run an external electric heater in there. So I can actually enjoy my Truck Simulator with my joystick, my Xbox 360 controller, and drive my truck happily on a monitor that's 32 inches in diagonal. The only problem with that is the monitor's not native 1080p, so yeah, the picture's a little bit and progressive is kind of crunched, but it's okay. So yeah, I would definitely consider the Mac Mini, especially if you just need routine stuff. You're not heavily pushing the boundaries, and you don't want a laptop, and yet you want something that's going to be around for a long time. Then the M1 Mac Mini, M2 Mac Mini, and now the upcoming M3 Mac Mini may be just a tool for you to play with for your application. Okay? Really, big deal. It is a big deal. Unfortunately, yeah, sometimes this computer does have its problems. Like a screensaver just went on, and my keyboard isn't working. I think my keyboard got unplugged again. Oh, I'll fix that. That's a problem with the hub, which is... well, let me do a review on that real quick. Since, obviously, I have to fix the plug on it. The hub. This thing here is cute. It's got these on-off switches for each individual devices. So whenever I have a problem, I can turn them on like this, instead of having to unplug cables. But this cord does come out on the side, which really sucks when it does. I don't know why they did that way, but they did. It's just crazy. Okay, the Mac, and the only thing is it doesn't support USB 3.1, 3.0. Why? It was supposed to. Because the stupid company never gave the driver download, even for Windows, to properly handle the port. Does that make any sense? In other words, it's a nice USB 2.0 hub at this point, but USB 3.0 it doesn't have, and it sucks. Technically is a semi-powered hub. Normally you would have the power adapter plugged in. My Mac doesn't seem to mind. Just getting bus provides power for everything. I try not to overwhelm it, but I'm sure I'm using a lot more than 500 milliwatts or milliamps of power on that thing, and it's doing fine. But I really suggest that if you're going to really seriously get one of these hubs, like what I'm talking about, even if I bought the one I bought, which is a cheap generic one, don't expect USB 3.0 support. If you get it and you plug it in and it supports USB 3.0, fantastic. But if for some reason you only get USB 2.0, that's fine too. I mean, as long as you can plug your USB 2.0 accessories in. Because even in the most basic example, like I mentioned, where you have a keyboard, a mouse, and a webcam, you're still going to need 3 USB ports right there, right? However, if you're using a PS2 keyboard and PS2 enabled mouse like the trackball like mine, yeah, you just only have to deal with 2 dongles, or 1 dongle for the computer, keyboard and mouse, and 1 for the camera. But that's just kind of a neat add-on accessory that you might want to look into. Well, anyway, I thank you for watching this short little demo. I hope that this will help you decide in the future what your options are. And I want you to know that I appreciate you coming and watching this. For now, bye-bye, guys.